business.
Opening up at a bar in Santa Maria, Mason, Woods, and Bowman are meeting an informant named Carlos. Speaking with the team, Carlos informs of the planned attack and extraction at a local airfield and provides them with a map. Cuban soldiers arrive at the bar and threaten the civilians to leave. Noticing the Americans, the soldiers begin to question our team, who refuse to speak.
All right.
Cuban police quickly arrive on the scene and surround the bar. Mason and Woods leave through the front door and fight their way through the police force before reaching a car. Carlos stays back to rally his men so that they can assist the team after the planned assassination of Fidel Castro. Mason takes the wheel and drives to a police roadblock before blacking out and returning to the interrogation room.
He's fading away. Mason, you escaped from the police. The Bay of Pigs had begun. You were heading for Castro's compound. We're losing him. Do it again. We have no choice.
Now out of the city and on a different day, Mason, Woods, and Bowman overlook the compound in which Castro is hiding. A flare is fired into the sky, signaling the beginning of the Bay of Pigs invasion. As raid alarms blare and Cuban soldiers rush to defend the area, our team zip lines into the compound. Mason chokes a soldier that is attempting to call for reinforcements before the team make it to a building. After clearing the building, Mason and Woods breach a door leading to Castro's bedroom. The woman then grabs a shotgun and attempts to kill the team before being shot by Woods. After fighting through a courtyard and being joined by Carlos's men, the squad make their way through a sugarcane field before reaching a cliff and rappelling down into the airfield. Running across the runway, the team reaches a plane that was secured by the rebels. Mason hangs out of the side of the plane, firing an M60 LMG and taking out a multitude of enemies. Woods notices a large blockade of vehicles at the end of the runway. Mason jumps out of the plane and rushes to an anti-aircraft gun and blows up the blockade before being left behind.
Runway's clear. No choice, Woods. I knew what I signed up for. I'll be fine. Just go. Get out of here.
I have plans for you, American.
In 1961, a group of Cuban exiles were recruited by the U.S. government, creating Brigade 2506. The exiles were trained and sent to Cuba with the intention of infiltrating Fidel Castro's Air Force and sabotaging it. After taking the Air Force, they were meant to land in Trinidad, but a nervous John F. Kennedy made the last-minute decision to move the landing zone to the Bay of Pigs, which was a favored vacation destination for Castro. On April 15th, the exiled Cuban pilots took off from Nicaragua and flying over Cuba were able to cripple a vast majority of Castro's Air Force. On April 17th, JFK canceled the remaining airstrikes and commenced the ground assault. Brigade 2506 headed for the shores of the Bay of Pigs, but being met with an overwhelming amount of Cuban forces, the brigade were unable to complete the mission, making the invasion a complete and utter failure and causing JFK's leadership to be questioned.
One!
Secure the keys!
You will break! Medical.
Victor Reznov.
My friend.
Starting off with Mason fighting Victor Reznov, a guard shows up to break the two apart and beats Reznov on the ground with a baton.
Step two!
Ascent from darkness!
Armed with a simple shiv, Mason and other prisoners fight their way through a tunnel. Reznov introduces Mason to a giant Russian named Sergei. Reaching the end of the tunnel, the escapees enter a lift and question if Mason can be trusted as he is an American. Reznov vouches for him. Making it to the end of the lift, multiple prisoners are being shot by a lone prison guard they have cornered. Sergei exits the lift and gives the guard back shots with a pickaxe. Mason picks the guard's pistol up off the ground before the prisoners open a large door and head outside to a rail yard.
Step three! Great fire!
Now outside, Mason, Reznov, and Sergei run to cover behind a coal car. Reznov and Sergei push the coal car forward and Mason provides cover as they proceed to a guard tower with a machine gun that is gunning down prisoners. Reaching the end of the rail, multiple prisoners use a makeshift slingshot to launch an improvised firebomb at the guard tower, taking it down.
Step four. Unleash the horde.
Now entering the military section of the prison, Mason heads to the top of the guard tower to join a few other prisoners, while Sergei breaks into the armory and Reznov uses the prison's broadcast system to rally more prisoners. After taking out multiple guard towers with a slingshot, Mason goes back down the stairs to get a shotgun and rejoin Reznov.
Step 5!
Skewer the winged beast!
Along with other prisoners, Mason breaks through a gate. Fighting through numerous guards, Mason reaches a rooftop and uses a harpoon to take down a helicopter that was keeping them pinned down. Reaching a large room full of guards, Mason can grab an AK-47 and take out guards using moving cover with the attached grenade launcher. Rushing through the building, a large metal door is closing and Sergey quickly holds the door open, allowing Mason to reach the other side before Sergey is shot, causing the door to crush him. Mason opens the door for the rest of the prisoners and they make their way to a garage where Reznov finds a blowtorch that he uses to open an armory door. After defending Reznov, Mason enters the armory and picks up a death machine minigun.
7!
Mason and prisoners now fight their way to a warehouse, laying waste to the prison using the death machine on the way. Near the house, guards use tear gas to neutralize the uprising prisoners and knock Mason out. Reznov drags Mason to the warehouse, where the two get on motorcycles and start the final step.
To step 8!
Freedom.
Driving through a window into the outside of the prison, guards pursue Mason and Reznov. The two eventually take out a gunner on the back of a truck before jumping to and taking the truck. Using the mounted machine gun, Mason takes out many enemies before they reach a train. Mason jumps to one of the train cars and yells to Reznov it's his turn. Reznov tells Mason that freedom is only meant for him before he is caught by the guards.
Step 8, Reznov! Freedom!
For you, Mason! Not for me!
Vorkuta Corrective Labor Camp was a massive gulag in the Soviet Union. Before the labor camp, a geologist settlement was set up by a nearby coal field, mostly consisting of inmates. In 1932, the Soviet Union, wanting to expand their gulag system, officially established the Vorkuta camp on the Pechora River, approximately 99 miles north of the Arctic Circle. In 1937, the Pechora Mainline Railway was constructed to connect Vorkuta directly to Moscow. This is the train that Mason jumps to at the end of the mission. Starting off with only 102 prisoners, the camp would come to house over 2 million criminals, POWs, and traitors while it was operational. The working conditions were brutal, with 3 months of the year being straight daylight. Being so far from civilization, even if prisoners were able to escape, the harsh weather conditions would ensure that they wouldn't make it that far. Starting on July 19, 1953, the prisoners would begin to go on strike, refusing to work. And on August 1st, this initially peaceful protest would turn into a full-blown riot, and the camp chief would open fire on the prisoners, resulting in the deaths of at least 53 inmates. Following the incident, conditions would slowly improve in the camp before its eventual closure in 1962. Now a free man, Mason is with CIA agent Jason Hudson heading to the Pentagon. Mason and Hudson land and enter a limo where they meet Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. On the way to the Pentagon, McNamara explains that Dragovich is a great threat to national security. Once reaching the Pentagon, the men make their way through multiple security checkpoints, and Mason tells his modern-day interrogators that he felt as if he was being watched. Walking through the Pentagon's nerve center, Mason begins to hallucinate numbers. Hudson comments on the Pentagon being overwhelming. Reaching a highly secure private room, Hudson lacks clearance and sends Mason in alone. Once in the room, Mason meets with President John F. Kennedy, who tells Mason that he must eliminate Dragovich, and that he is the best man for the job. The Pentagon was established in 1943 as the U.S. Department of Defense. Sitting in Arlington, Virginia and serving as a massive office space, the Pentagon is a nerve center for the NSA and many other military agencies. The building has multiple rooms known as SCIFs in which officials are able to speak freely without the fear of being electronically spied on. It's hard to say what exactly goes on inside due to the classified nature of the agencies working there.
No response on Weaver. We gotta move. Stay sharp, Mason.
Mason and Wood starts off hurrying through a scrapyard, hiding from enemy helicopters flying overhead. Reaching a small cliffside, the two overlook the USSR Cosmodrome. Taking binoculars from Woods, Mason looks into the compound, taking note of enemy positions before he sees Dragovich's right-hand man, Kravchenko. Kravchenko has captured Weaver and holds a radio threatening the Americans before stabbing Weaver in the eye. Now in a hurry, Woods and Mason rush to infiltrate the compound. After hiding from a helicopter, they take out a small patrol and use the enemy's clothing as a disguise. Walking for a short while, Mason and Woods rendezvous with Bowman and Brooks as they take out another patrol. Heading into the compound, the group are stopped by Russian soldiers and Woods speaks to them in Russian. Reaching a communications building, Bowman and Brooks distract the two soldiers guarding the door as Mason and Woods head inside and take out the enemies as they make their way to the roof. After Woods gives him a crossbow, Mason uses explosive bolts to cover Bowman and Brooks as they head toward the building where Weaver is being held. Mason then fires a bolt with an attached zip line, and he and Woods zip line through a window and clear out a room, freeing Weaver. Now with 5 minutes on the clock, the squad are on their way to the main control bunker to stop the launch of the rocket. After fighting to the bunker, Mason plants C4 and breaches into the room. Weaver is unable to cancel the launch, and the rockets take off. Mason picks up a Valkyrie launcher and fires it at the rocket.
Oh, shit!
It's a hell of a way to test the prototype.
Fucking A.
After fighting through an underground facility, the game flashes back to present day, and Mason explains how they took out Dragovich's limo but were unable to confirm his body.
We're going after Dragovich.
We're losing them again. Stay with me, Mason.
Kravchenko escaped before we could get to him.
You were getting close. Dragovich was there, wasn't
We
he?
searched the whole base. Couldn't find the bastard
This is a
anywhere.
waste of time. He's delusional.
But then we ran into Dragovich's limo. I had him.
Satisfied, Mason?
No! Not yet. Not until I see the body.
Dragovich, did you confirm the kill?
Trust me. That rat bast's a fucking charcoal briquette.
The Baikonur Cosmodrome was a real launch pad and space station within the Soviet Union. The launch pad was constructed in 1955 and served as the base operations for the Soviet space program. Worried about a new missile base being built in the Soviet Union, the United States began to spy on the facility, but it was too late. On August 21, 1956, the chief scientist launched the world's first intercontinental ballistic missile. The Cosmodrome would later serve as the launching point of Sputnik 1 and the start of the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union. It is also the site that Yuri Gagarin piloted Vostok 1 from, becoming the first human in space. Baikonur Cosmodrome is still operational to this day and open for tours. Their next launch is set for November 21st, 2024. The mission starts off with Hudson telling Mason that Woods is here. Stepping out of a tent, Woods arrives and hops off the side of a chopper with Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater Revival playing in the background. The song was also featured in the Vietnam War section in the movie Forrest Gump and immediately sets the tone for the setting. Getting in a Jeep, Woods explains how and when Mac v S.O.G was created. Viet Cong then begin to assault the base, causing the Jeep to flip. Woods and Mason quickly get back to their feet, and Mason carries a disoriented Hudson to a nearby bunker. Mason is almost ran over by a tank when navigating through the trenches and must crawl underneath it to continue. Later, a Viet Cong jumps down onto Mason, who is able to fight him off by pulling the pin on a grenade in the Viet Cong's vest. Using napalm barrels and C4, American squads defend from many Viet Cong soldiers and tanks. Fighting their way up a hill backed by mortar fire, Mason and Woods are able to reach the top. When they get there, they are dazed by a mortar. Making it through a tunnel, Mason mounts a rocket launcher on a Jeep and takes out 6 Vietnamese tanks. After the dust settles, Bowman arrives in a chopper, also with Fortunate Son playing, the same as Woods. The Vietnam War took place from November 1955 to April 30th, 1975, nearly 20 years. Battles were fought in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. After getting independence from France, Vietnam was split into North and South. North Vietnam was controlled by the Viet Minh, and the U.S. provided financial and military support to the South. The whole point of this war was to prevent the spread of communism from North Vietnam, and was greatly intensified by the tensions between the U.S. and Soviet Union. Earlier this year, I was lucky enough to visit Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City in the still communist nation of Vietnam. I was able to visit some war zones as well as see and hear first-hand encounters of this brutal war. The history of this war goes too deep for me to cover in this video, but I'll put links below if you're interested and want to learn more. Just know that it is a very real and very horrible war for the Vietnamese people. The Battle of Khe Sanh took place from January 21st to July 9th, 1968. U.S. forces defended Khe Sanh combat base from northern Vietnamese forces. General William Westmoreland at one point considered the use of nuclear weaponry before the idea was shut down. The Battle of Khe Sanh's history also goes very deep and is too much to cover here, so again, I'll leave a link below if you want to learn more. At the beginning of the mission, Woods mentions the MAC-V-SOG, short for the Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observations Group. MAC-V-SOG was established on the 24th of January in 1964. The purpose of the group was to conduct reconnaissance missions in North and South Vietnam, as well as take prisoners and perform rescue missions. The group played a big part in the war and participated in many missions before eventually being disbanded on May 1st, 1972. Napalm is used in the mission, and it is a highly flammable gelatinous liquid. It was used to great and horrendous effect during the war. With all of its napalm bombings, the US killed many innocent Vietnamese people and burned down a great number of villages.
He's alive! We'll fight!
Project 3, hook up.
The mission opens with Mason and his squad rappelling onto the roof of a MAC-V compound from helicopters before they are shot down. Woods and Mason crash through a window to enter the compound. As Mason is getting up from the ground, Woods takes out 3 Viet Cong and tosses a loaded SPAS-12 with Dragon's Breath rounds to Mason. With help from friendly choppers, the team make their way through the building in search of the Defector. Mason breaches a door and is surprised to find Reznov, who informs Mason that Dragovich is planning an attack on the US. Once outside, Mason and his team join other squads, marking buildings for the friendly chopper to take out. Reaching the evacuation zone, a few injured soldiers are loaded onto choppers and taken away, while Mason, Woods, and team stay behind to defend the LZ from Viet Cong. Mason eventually calls in a bombing run and forces them to escape by boat. The MAC-V compound that Woods and Mason breached at the start of the mission was real and used as a headquarters and base of operations for the group in Hue. From the 31st of January to the 2nd of March 1968, the Battle of Hue rages on. South Vietnam and US forces lost control of Hue City and fought brutally for over a month to eventually retake the city. The battle greatly affected the public view of the war in the United States in a negative way. Again, there's a lot of history and stories for this battle, and I'll be leaving links below if you want to learn more.
By talking to you.
The mission starts off with Hudson and Weaver interrogating Dr. Clark, a scientist involved in the Nova 6 project. They put glass in his mouth and punch him just before Spetsnaz soldiers show up in an attempt to assassinate the doctor. Following Clark's escape plan, the 3 men fight across rooftops and through apartments before reaching a weapons cache that Clark had set up. After more fighting across rooftops, they make a large jump in which Clark begins to slip. Hudson makes the jump and begins to slip as well. Weaver makes the jump and is able to grab onto Hudson, and Hudson grabs Clark.
Got you! What about the numbers? Oh yeah! I have the key! Вот он! Он у меня на мушке! Давай на поражение! Он убит!
Letting go of Clark's body, Hudson and Weaver hurry down to the street level where Hudson falls through a canopy and enemies begin to surround the two, but friendlies arrive in a van and they all leave the area. Kowloon City, located in Hong Kong, was originally built as an Imperial Chinese military fort. The walled city would eventually become home to 35,000 residents in its 26,000 square meter area. This area would basically serve as a den for degenerates. Rates of gambling, prostitution, and drug use were extremely high. Even the trade of dog meat was not off the table here. The inhabitants were eventually evicted and the city was demolished. Sitting in its place today is a park. Flashing back to his time in Vorkuta, Mason recounts a story Reznov had told him. Reznov tells of a mission he was on after the end of World War II with Dragovich and Kravchenko to find and capture the German scientist Friedrich Steiner.
It is time.
Yes, Dmitri. Time to hunt down the last remnants of the fascist Reich.
Boarding a snow truck, Reznov explains that he doesn't trust Dragovich or Kravchenko. Upon reaching the German base, Reznov and his men fight through many soldiers to reach Steiner's position. Once reaching the room, we find Steiner right after he has taken out a few of his own men. Reznov continues the story when his team has reached a destroyed and frozen German ship. Walking with Steiner and Dragovich, Steiner explains the Germans plan to bombard Washington, D.C. and Moscow with the Nova 6 loaded V-2 rockets inside the ship. Once reaching a room with 2 chambers, Dragovich wants to see the effects of Nova 6 firsthand. He has Reznov and his men tossed into the chambers, releasing Nova 6 into them, and Reznov watches as Dmitri chokes on the gas. Before Reznov's chamber is able to be filled with the gas, British soldiers show up and begin assaulting the Russians. Reznov and his remaining men plant explosives on the V-2 rockets and fight their way past Russian and British soldiers before escaping and blowing the ship. Back in Vorkuta, Reznov explains to Mason that as long as Steiner lives, he will be able to reproduce Nova 6 for Dragovich, and questions if the US would decide to destroy or use the gas. Nazi bases in the Arctic Circle were very rudimentary, mainly only serving as weather stations, leaving not much else to talk about this mission as far as real history goes.
I need some help here! Yeah, Roy! Shit! They're coming!
Mason is able to eliminate the attacking soldiers using a pistol before the chopper begins to sink. Underwater, Mason struggles to open the door of the helicopter before Reznov shows up and opens it for him. Mason swims up to a boat and, using a Viet Cong as a human shield, fires the soldier's AK to take out a number of enemies. The two then drag soldiers off of a boat and cut their throats underwater. After meeting up with Bowman and another soldier, the team splits up and Mason plants C4 underneath enemy huts. Entering another hut, Woods and Mason silently eliminate sleeping Viet Cong in absolutely brutal fashion. Mason takes out another enemy before planting more C4, regrouping with Woods and Bowman. Mason then blows the C4 he planted earlier and they begin to assault the village. Reaching rat holes, Mason tosses a grenade into them, closing them off. Now joined with Swift, Mason climbs down a rat hole and runs into Reznov yet again, who tells him that Kravchenko is near. After asking what is wrong with Mason, Swift is attacked by an enemy and unable to be saved. Fighting through Viet Cong in the tunnels, Mason meets up with Reznov yet again. The two eventually reach a small radio station and find that Kravchenko has already left. Being rigged with explosives, the tunnels blow up and begin to collapse, forcing Mason to quickly climb his way out as the hole around him closes. Reaching the exit, Mason stands on the edge of a high cliff and waits for Woods and Bowman to pick him up. The Cu Chi tunnels, also known as rat tunnels, were a vast network of tunnels dug by the Vietnamese to disguise themselves from US forces. These tunnels were very intricate, with barracks, armories, and even kitchens. They had multiple dead ends and false paths, with holes dug in certain ways as to disguise the smoke from the kitchens. This was one of my favorite tours during my time in Vietnam.
That's all right, let's go!
Starting off, Mason and soldiers are being dropped off at a landing zone. Mason, Woods, and Bowman and a young soldier board a boat, where Woods tells the younger soldier to man the gun and don't get killed. Woods and Bowman grab Grim Reaper launchers, and Mason takes the wheel of the boat. Guiding the boat down the Mekong River, Mason commands the others to shoot rockets and fire a minigun. Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones play in the background. After destroying many enemy camps and boats, the young soldier manning the gun in the front is now dead. Now parking the boat at a dock, Mason, Woods, and Bowman begin searching for the downed plane. Walking up the wing of the plane, it nearly collapses and causes the team to fall. After reaching the inside of the aircraft, they find the crate that they believe to contain Nova 6, only to discover that it is a China lake and a map inside. Spetsnaz and Viet Cong arrive and begin attacking the team. An enemy attack helicopter shows up and shoots the plane, causing it to fall. Waking up, Mason sees Bowman being taken away and is unable to save him due to his pistol being empty. Most of this mission is fictional, with the exception of the location of Laos. Laos played a huge role in the Vietnam War, serving as a covert theater. It received external support during a proxy war between the United States and Soviet Union. The mission begins with a pilot entering the cockpit of an SR-71 Blackbird.
Gear away. Check.
Cad, this is Big Eye. We are away.
After taking off, the Blackbird reaches the atmosphere and the pilot opens a thermal vision camera to provide intel to the team on the ground. The ground team, consisting of Hudson, Weaver, and a few other agents, enter a small safe house to avoid enemy vehicles. The vehicles stop outside of the safe house, and as soon as they enter, Weaver takes down 2 of them and the rest of the team eliminates the rest of them. Back in the seat of the Blackbird, the pilot guides the team to another building. Entering this building, the team clears it of enemies before cutting off the internal comms of the base. The team is guided to the end of a road and the game flashes forward. Hudson and crew are now hiding under some branches as a large enemy squad passes by. Hooking to a handrail, the squad rappels down, breaking through a window and clearing the room. Heading further down the mountain, the team takes out more patrols of enemies before making it to a control room. After clearing this room, Hudson disables the station's comm relay. Going back outside, the team crosses a catwalk just as it is hit by an RPG. The explosion causes an avalanche, forcing the team to rush and jump off the side of the mountain using their parachutes. Landing outside the main compound, Russian soldiers are burning documents. Finding another control room, the squad sees a map with many targets placed on the United States. Dr. Steiner locks the room and jams the team's comms, and then Steiner comes over an intercom to make a deal for his life by offering to crack the code that Dragovich uses in his sleeper cell broadcast. After informing Hudson and Weaver that he is on Rebirth Island, Steiner unlocks the room. Now free, the team fights through many Russian forces before reaching a truck with a mounted MG they use to escape. The SR-71 Blackbird first took flight on December 22, 1964. It was developed as a high-altitude reconnaissance plane with a reduced radar cross-section in mind. It flew missions over North Vietnam gathering intel for the war. The aircraft would require at least a week after a mission before it could be used again due to the extended repairs required. The SR-71 was eventually retired by the United States Air Force in 1998 and NASA in 1999. After the fall of the Soviet Union, the U.S. discovered a secret nuclear base or bunker at Mount Yamantau through the use of satellite energy, which is the only connection to there being a military presence on the mountain.
Mason. Mason, you with me?
Woods. Dragovich is fucking with us.
We were all fucked and we knew it. And all I could hear was Bowman sobbing. He'd given up. You could fucking blame him.
Bowman.
I'm tired. I just want to end
You
this.
don't mean that, Bowman.
Fuck you, Charlie.
Bowman, don't.
You dead American. Последний шанс. Играй или умирай.
You don't scare me. Communist piece of shit.
Bowman! Bowman! You fucking son of a bitch!
Next.
I'm gonna kill you all!
Don't you touch me!
What? Shit.
Motherfuckers. I'm gonna make them pay.
You! No talk. Play!
What's the plan?
I'm thinking.
No talk!
One chance, Mason.
Take it.
Okay.
Bang! You can't kill me! You shoot, Gia, you shoot! Fuck! This time, do it! Aim lang!
Ready.
Play. Bang!
6 and 8 o'clock.
The Russian runs off attempting to escape, but Mason is able to catch up and take him down. Now outside of the cave, Mason and Woods are able to steal an attack chopper and begin flying down the Mekong River, assaulting enemy bases along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Eventually reaching Kravchenko's compound, the two land and begin their assault. Mason finds American POWs in a holding cell. After freeing them, Reznov walks out of the cell as well, telling Mason they must hurry. Kicking in the door of Kravchenko's office, Mason is attacked by him.
Not this time, American. You again.
I should have killed you in Vorkuta.
Got you now, you son of a bitch. You die with me.
What?
I got you, Mason.
What?
You're okay.
Many U.S. soldiers were captured throughout the Vietnam War. The POWs were kept in extremely harsh conditions. They tortured and malnourished the captured soldiers despite North Vietnam signing the Third Geneva Convention, which demanded decent and humane treatment of the POWs. Agent Orange is a chemical herbicide that was used by the United States to destroy Vietnamese crops. With the chemical dioxin being a part of the mixture, Agent Orange has been responsible for giving many soldiers cancer and causing deformities due to its DNA-altering properties, which are felt for generations. Back to my own experience in Vietnam, I was able to visit Handicapped Handicraft, where victims and children of the victims of Agent Orange handcraft intricate art pieces from a variety of natural resources. The Mekong River is a river that flows through China, Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. During the Vietnam War, the Mekong was a key logistics route for all sides and was a major point of contention. I was able to visit and take a boat across the Mekong River during my visit to Vietnam.
We are here.
Mason and Reznov start off hiding in a cargo container. After exiting the container and taking out a guard using a tomahawk, the two hide from a helicopter. Climbing to a rooftop, Mason takes down a couple of enemies, and after reaching the rooftop, Mason notices that the CIA are assaulting the compound before entering the building. Fighting past many Russian troops and through an animal and human testing facility, Mason and Reznov reach Steiner, and Reznov kills the German scientist, taking his revenge, as Hudson and Weaver are trying to break into the room and stop him.
I know you. Vorkuta. You don't know what we did to you.
Mason, talk to me.
Your evil has claimed the lives of many good men. No longer.
Killing me will not stop Nova. I do not care about Nova. My name is Victor Reznov. And I will have my revenge.
Hudson. Flashing back 20 minutes, we now join Hudson as he and Weaver begin to assault the same compound on Rebirth Island. After taking out many enemies from the gunner seat of an APC, a helicopter shows up, dropping Nova 6 onto the teams. Now on foot, Hudson and his crew quickly put on gas masks and continue fighting into the compound. After reaching the main building, the team discovers that Mason has already eliminated a majority of the enemies inside. Making it to the outside window of the room with Steiner, Hudson and Weaver see Mason pointing a gun at Steiner and saying,
My name is Victor Reznov, and I will have my
Revenge! Mason, no!
Weaver asks about Reznov, and Hudson tells him that he never survived the Vorkuta prison escape and is just in Mason's head as a result of brainwashing. The Soviet Union used this island for biochemical weapons research and performing tests on animals, similar to what you see in the game.
We're out of time! We can't give up now. He was at Vorkuta. He knows how to translate the codes. He's heard the broadcasts, which we know contain the location. It's all in his head somewhere. He does know where it is. We have to get to the bunker. We're on DEFCON 2. You've tried everything. Not yet. I have one more card to play.
Get out of here, Weaver. Tell them I failed.
You want to die with him? Your choice.
Damn it! Why can't you remember? Reznov's dead, Mason. Did you hear me? He's dead! Weaver's right. We're out of time. The Russians fucked you up. I know you. You're not a traitor.
As soon as he is free, Mason punches Hudson in the face, knocking him to the ground, and leaves the room. Stumbling down hallways, Mason searches for Reznov and begins to have flashbacks of the brainwashing attempts on him at Vorkuta. Reaching a computer lab, Hudson catches up and punches Mason, knocking him unconscious. Now in his mind, Mason begins to remember more of his time in Vorkuta, recalls a time that he was strapped to a table and Reznov was standing over him, insisting that they are the same person. Waking up, Mason is being held at gunpoint by Hudson, who explains that Reznov was not the Russian defector and was never with Mason in Vietnam or Rebirth Island. Hudson tells Mason that Reznov died in the Vorkuta escape and that he has been brainwashed by Dragovich in Russia's attempt at MK-Ultra to assassinate JFK. That he was reprogrammed by Reznov to kill Kravchenko, Steiner, and Dragovich. Mason then watches the numbers on the monitors and realizes that the numbers are being broadcast from the Russian ship, the Rusalka, the same one he laid in front of after being captured in Cuba.
Permanent broadcast station within their borders.
Project MK-Ultra was a series of highly illegal human experimentations conducted by the CIA in the United States from 1953 to 1973. Psychoactive drugs, mainly LSD, were unknowingly administered to subjects along with electroshocks, hypnosis, isolation, sensory deprivations, verbal and sexual abuse, as well as other forms of torture were carried out in an attempt to discover ways to force confessions and brainwash people. There is so much more to talk about when it comes to this project, so I'll link more in-depth videos below. You can also Google it and read the real-life declassified documents.
We're approaching the number station.
With the Nova 6 attacks on the US nearing, Mason, Hudson, and Weaver lead an assault on the Rusalka using helicopters. Taking out many anti-air equipment on the deck of the ship, the helicopter Mason and Hudson are in is damaged and must land on the ship's helipad. After crash landing, the two fight their way below deck where they realize the ship is just a cover, and that the real number station is underwater. Hudson orders Weaver to call in the Navy, and the team head underwater to attack the main base. Making it to the main control room, Mason disables the broadcast just before an explosive goes off. Dragovich shows up and points a pistol at Mason. Hudson distracts him, giving Mason just enough time to pull him to the floor below and drown him. With the mission accomplished, the team swims to the surface and sees a huge Navy fleet there to assist them. Hudson declares victory, but Mason is unsure and still haunted by Dragovich.
Mason! It is over. We won.
Throughout the game, we watch as Mason's mental state deteriorates. The first mission seems to be the only one where Mason is in complete control. After being captured and sent to Vorkuta, Mason was forced to undergo mental manipulation in attempts to create a sleeper agent for Dragovich and assassinate JFK. Strapped to a table, it is unknown the extent of the experiments that were conducted on Mason during his time under Dr. Steiner's care. Unfortunately, or thankfully, Reznov was able to intervene and somehow rewire Mason's brainwashing, causing him to have an obsession with eliminating Dragovich, Kravchenko, and Dr. Steiner. This obsession can first be noticed in executive order when Mason is unsatisfied not being able to confirm Dragovich's body. During his time in Vietnam, Mason would begin to have many hallucinations of his old friend Reznov, first believing Reznov to be the Defector, to later being guided by Reznov through rat tunnels and eventually being led to Rebirth Island by his Russian friend. It is on Rebirth Island that we first learn that Reznov is only a figment of Mason's imagination when we subdue him through the eyes of Hudson. Exhibiting signs of dissociative identity disorder and possibly schizophrenia, Mason would seemingly take a back seat in his own mind while Reznov would take control in an effort to get his revenge. The whole point of the interrogation and torture Mason was put through by Hudson and Weaver and the CIA was to break the mental rewiring Mason went through and decode the numbers. Mason underwent extreme experimentations and brain rewiring, and despite him seeming to regain most of his mind, him being in the crowd at JFK's assassination seems to beg the question, can a person ever truly recover from such experiences and abuse, or is the damage unable to be undone? The real-life footage used at the end of the campaign involving JFK's assassination creates an eerie ending. Mason being in the crowd seems to play off of real-world theories that the CIA played a role in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. All of this seems more relevant now given the events that took place at the Trump rally in Butler a few weeks ago. Who knows, maybe the events of today will inspire a game in the future. If you made it this far into the video and enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. I put a lot of time and effort into this video and I'm hoping to grow the channel some, so your support will go a long way. Black Ops 2 next.